Welcome to Talking Time Caffeine. The podcast has been delayed by 2.5 weeks, but we finally got to it.
Better late than never,
The
right?
Godzilla review.
Yep,
Yeah.
here we are. So yeah, long awaited, but now is the time.
Yeah, I was telling Eric, I was rewatching the King of Monsters one movie before we started. So I can get caught up again.
Yeah, which I definitely would say is a pretty good idea. So
Before we started, Eric had mentioned that the 2014 was his least favorite movie, and I asked him if it was better or worse than the infamous '98 movie.
I would say in some ways it is better, but in some ways I can't believe I'm saying this. The 1998 movie did things a little bit better, and I can't believe that I'm saying that because um, it's because of how much the 98 movie really steered pretty far like from the character of Godzilla. I mean, heck, the monster in that movie now has gotten the nickname of either Gino, Godzilla in name only, or just simply Zilla. But it seems like Zilla is the more common name.
So, about you, Snick, what's your Godzilla experience?
Well, my aunt showed me the 98 movie as a kid. I do not remember getting past the part where Zilla attacks the city and then the military trying to take it out winds up doing more damage to the city than Zilla did, which results in the Roger Ebert mayor stating the obvious. You all did more damage than that thing did. Oh, no, it's okay. So get some candy. No, I don't want any candy.
Oh yeah, and the funny thing about that whole thing with Roger Ebert, so it was supposed to be a jab like at the critics, Siskel and Ebert.
Yeah.
But and so Siskel and Ebert eventually did see the movie and they commented on that. And I believe Gene Siskel said, okay, if you're going to include these characters who are obviously supposed to be us, then why didn't you just have the monster stomp on us like as like total revenge against us? If I had to play devil's advocate, maybe it's because they were afraid that they would be sued for defamation of character.
Yeah.
But yeah,
So, have you any of you ever watched the old '60s?
Yes, I did.
I have not.
I saw a few reruns here and there, but way
Yes,
back
I
in the
did.
day.
But yeah, I remember the 1998 Godzilla actually was the first Godzilla movie that I ever saw. I had it as a kid on VHS. I watched it numerous times, and because of that, it actually got me introduced to the Toho films. And yeah, I remember back when Hastings was a thing. I remember that I would go and rent Godzilla movies on VHS like every week. So I remember I rented Godzilla vs. Mechagodzilla, Godzilla vs. Gigan, and the original Godzilla King of the Monsters from the 1950s, which is the Americanized version of the Japanese version. And yeah, and pretty much every single Showa era Godzilla movie, I do have fond memories of renting at Hastings. So.
All right, so let's talk about. Do we know how they wanted? Do we know the history of why they wanted to reboot the Godzilla series?
So when they did the 1998 film, it essentially was supposed to start off like an American franchise, but because of all the critical and fan backlash from the 98 movie, and also the 98 movie also underperformed at the box office. Yes, it was a box office hit, but it didn't perform as much as they hoped. So because of that, plans for a sequel were scrapped. But however, we did get the sequel in a way with the Godzilla, the animated series, which a lot of people, including myself, will absolutely agree that it's significantly better than the movie. The characters are written better, and also Godzilla himself, albeit minus the design, but he is definitely a lot more faithful to like the Japanese movies with like the atomic breath and all that.
Well, I totally forgot about that series back in the
It's
early
so
2000s.
interesting that you can get the full Godzilla animated series on DVD, but
Yep.
you can't get the Men in Black series, and you can't get Extreme Ghostbusters, since all three were like made by the same people, I believe.
Well, that's a shame that you can't get the rest of those series on DVD. But hey, I guess maybe you can at least get a bootleg of it.
Or you have to use Sony's streaming service Crackle.
Yeah, you could do that too if you wanted to.
Yeah, that's like the only place I know of where they consistently offer stuff.
Yeah, and so then after Godzilla the animated series, we and then got some of the more of the Toho films in the Millennium era, and then the last film in that era like was Godzilla Final Wars, and that was intended on being the last Godzilla film for a while. I do know that there were plans for like a Godzilla 3D movie. I forget what it's called, but it was supposed to be like a short IMAX movie, and I believe it was supposed to be directed by the guy who did Godzilla versus Hedorah. I forget his name, but yeah, unfortunately, those plans fell through. Well, I guess it depends on how you look at it, and so because that fell through, it then led to the makers of that movie approaching Legendary Pictures, like to see if it would be possible if they could make a new American Godzilla movie. And the really funny thing is, I remember this was back in the day, like when IMDb still had like the message boards. I do remember going on the message board for Godzilla 1998, and I said, hey, do any of you think it ever will be possible if we ever could get another American Godzilla movie, but have it be more faithful to the Japanese movies? Just a day later, I kid you not, a day later, it was announced that Legendary Pictures then acquired the rights to make an American Godzilla reboot that was going to be more faithful to the Japanese movies. I'm like, damn, what a coincidence, right?
They stole your idea.
Plagiarists! I'm going to sue them. So, yeah, and then it was announced again in 2010. I do remember hearing a rumor it was supposed to come out in 2012. Why that didn't happen, I have no idea. Maybe. Oh, sorry. I was just trying to adjust my mic. But yeah, it was supposed to come out in 2012. For whatever reason, that just did not happen. Probably because that they just didn't have the movie ready. They maybe not have had a cast or whatever. But then we finally got it in 2014, and oh man, I'll never forget how hyped I was to see that movie, because I was like, yes, an American Godzilla reboot. Maybe now American audiences can take the character more seriously, and especially because they were really hyping it up to be like it's going to be more in tone with the 1954 movie, and yeah, and growing up as a Godzilla fan, it has never been easy like to get your hands on a Godzilla movie. I mean, it wasn't until with the advent of DVD. I mean, heck, even for an American Godzilla fan to see a Godzilla movie on the big screen, you haven't really had a whole lot of options. Like, you had the 1954 re-edit, like with Raymond Burr in 1956, and then you had Godzilla 1985, but both of those two, were in theaters before I was even born, so that's out of the question. Then after Godzilla 1998, there was Godzilla 2000. I do remember watching Godzilla 2000 as a kid. I remember loving it. Well, the problem was I had no idea that even was in theaters at that time. And then I was pissed years later when I found out that it actually was showing in American theaters. I was like, God damn it, you have got to be kidding me. Then afterwards, there was, the 2014 movie, which was my first time seeing a Godzilla movie in theaters. I was so stoked for that. Then there was Shin Godzilla. I tried to see that in theaters, but none of the theaters in my area were playing it. So the only Godzilla movies I've seen in theaters, with me being a big fan, are the Legendary Pictures movies, and there also was a showing of the original movie, uh, the original one from Toho Studios. My first semester of college. So yeah.
So, what about you, Snick? What's your Godzilla experience?
Well, outside the 98 movie, not much. Like, I did not see the 2014 movie in theaters. I haven't seen any of the Godzilla movies in theaters. Now, if we're talking the MonsterVerse movies, like the four of them, I did see Kong Skull Island in theaters. And jumping ahead a little bit, if we're talking all four movies from like the Legendary Pictures MonsterVerse, Kong Skull Island is the only one I can confidently say I liked.
Okay.
Like, and it's not even that great of a movie, but like I still liked it. All the others, the 2014 one, King of the Monsters, and Godzilla vs. Kong, they were like Godzilla vs. Kong, I could say was okay, but the two standalone Godzilla movies, particularly King of the Monsters, I'm not particularly fond of.
Okay.
So,
Right. So let's start with the first movie of I guess call it the trilogy. I guess the
But yeah,
2014 movie.
the 2014 movie. Uh, that is the most hyped I've ever been for a movie my whole entire life. And yeah, I had my expectations extremely high. It's because of how all the filmmakers were saying it's going to be character driven, it's going to be dark and serious like the original movie, and all of the trailers had me hooked. It had a design that's more faithful to the Toho design. I was stoked out of my mind to see this movie. I mean, I remember that I bought my ticket in advance just so that I could, be guaranteed to see this movie. And so, what did you two think of the 2014 movie?
so for the 2014 movie, the opening had me hooked more or less.
Uh-huh.
Like, Bryan Cranston is easily the best human character in the movie,
Definitely.
making it all the more tragic that he exits the movie pretty quickly.
Yep.
And yeah, I'll say the movie does nail like the overall scale of Godzilla like really well. Like the scenes where he appears, like they try to like they definitely make it where you feel like the scale that like the human characters are dealing with, like the destruction and everything. But at the same time, they don't. I feel like they didn't focus on him as much. And after Bryan Cranston exits the movie, I'm just gonna say I did not find any of the other characters engaging at all. And because
Yep.
there's hardly any Godzilla action to compensate, like it just kind of became a snooze fest after that.
I agree.
Yeah.
I agree. The movie's biggest mistake was killing off Bryan Cranston's character. That was a huge mistake because Aaron Taylor Johnson, his character was just not compelling enough to carry the rest of the movie on his soldiers. It just, oh man, killing him off was such a big mistake. He was the most compelling character, and then they killed him off, and then Aaron Taylor Johnson's character was way too bland of a character. And now look, I get it. They're wanting to go with the Jaws route, but the thing with what Jaws did right is that it would show like shots of the shark's fin or the point of view shot. With this, it's just really cheap cutaways, like right before a fight, they then cut away. This really made me mad in theaters. Like that first reveal of Godzilla in the movie was so epic. Like it slowly pans up, that then he roars. That was so epic, but they ruined it as soon as they cut away, and then you briefly see some parts of the fight on the TV. I'm like, you've got to be kidding me. I hated that.
Mm-hmm.
So what is it with movies not showing the star character in the movies?
It's probably because they're trying to go with the Jaws route. And look, I get it; they want to build up the suspense, but Jaws did it right because of you see shots of the shark's fin or point of view. Here, you're just left with boring characters. Besides Brian Cranston, who dies way too early in the movie, and you're left with these cheap cutaways right before a fight, then yes, you do get the fight at the very end, but by then it's already too late. And that was a big issue that I had with the whole movie. And we were promised a movie that was going to be more in line with the 1954 movie, but I really didn't get that vibe at all. It felt more like it felt more of like some of the Showa era movies where Godzilla is the good guy. I'm like, okay, then where's that sense of dread that was promised? And compelling characters. The only compelling character they had was Bryan Cranston, and they killed him off, and then we're left with boring characters. So they're all raving about how it has good characters, but you only had one interesting character. So yeah, I'm just being honest. I was really disappointed with the 2014 movie. I mean, yes, as bad as the 98 movie was, at least that they did the suspense better, like with Zilla. Like during the first reveal of Zilla, you don't get a full shot. You just see its spikes or its feet and whatnot. That actually was extremely well done. And yeah,
I might be misremembering this, but I heard the original night movie they made him a dinosaur instead of a lizard, and they made him a lizard again.
In the original Japanese movie, he was a dinosaur that's mutated. In the 98 movie, he is a marine iguana that gets mutated. And now in this, he is back to being a mutated dinosaur. So yeah, with any of the issues that I have with the 2014 movie, do any of you have the same issues that I had?
Basically, yeah. The 2014 movie, you summed it up.
Yep.
Yeah.
Oh man, I'll never forget how disappointed I was, and that experience taught me a very valuable lesson about being hyped for a movie. It's okay to be hyped for a movie, but don't get too carried away with it, because I feel like that I set myself up for failure by setting the bar so high, because I went into the movie expecting that we're going to get a masterpiece like the 1954 movie. And yeah, oh man, I was so disappointed. Now, yes, the end battle was cool, but by then it was too late.
Now, are the battles CGI or they models or what?
From my understanding, they're all CGI.
I think they did use motion capture actors for the CGI, but yeah.
Yep. Yeah, and even the 98 movie, yes, it had mostly CGI, but there actually were some shots where they used an animatronic, and in some shots, they actually did use a guy in a suit.
Yeah, I like the old ones. We tell they're stop motion or something.
Well, the original movie was supposed to use stop motion, but it was too expensive and it would have taken too much time. So that's why it was a guy in a suit. The only time that I know of in the original Japanese movies where they ever used stop motion was very, very briefly during King Kong versus Godzilla.
And we'll get to that remake in a bit.
We will, yeah.
But anything else you guys want to say about the first movie?
Nah.
Now, was there a second movie called? Was there? I was watching, looking this up. I found there was the 2017 Godzilla movie too.
I believe maybe you're talking about Kong Skull Island, because I know Kong Skull Island did come out in 2017.
Maybe.
Yeah, it did. Yeah, you might be thinking Kong Skull Island because it is the same universe.
Yep.
In that case, let's talk about the King of the Monsters.
All right, King of the Monsters. But yeah, I feel like the 2014 movie's biggest mistake was having Gareth Edwards as the director, because it was his idea to have like the cutaway stuff during the fight scene. So I blame a lot of the downfall on the 2014 movie on him. So the fact that he didn't come back to direct King of the Monsters, I feel like kind of helped the movie in a way. No, yes, King of the Monsters 2019 is by no means a perfect movie. It does have its flaws, but if I were to be honest, I like King of the Monsters a lot better.
Real fast, I found it. It was called Godzilla: Planet of the Monsters. I guess it's only in Japan.
Oh yeah. Planet of the Monsters. It is like, yeah, it's a part of the Godzilla franchise, but it's not a part of the MonsterVerse.
Okay. While I was watching this, apparently there was a scene where a kid got killed in the 2014 movie. Split a family up, and the wife or the mother is like, we gotta release all of these monsters so they can Thanos the earth for us.
Yeah, interesting.
Because so apparently humans are a plague, and we gotta run them down using the monsters to do it.
Well, that's interesting. Did any of you see King of the Monsters at the movie theater?
No.
Yeah. Were you as hyped to see this one in the theaters, or did you like?
Yes, I was hyped because I was excited to see like such classic Godzilla monsters like Rodan, King Ghidorah, Mothra. I was really excited for those to finally be in a big budget mainstream Hollywood movie. I'm like, finally, those monsters are getting the Hollywood treatment. Yes, I was hyped, but I learned my lesson from the 2014 movie, and I made sure to not get as hyped. But yeah, the 2019 movie definitely did the fight scenes a lot better. Way better. And
actually seeing the monsters fight.
Yeah, and there's not some bullshit cutaway like right before the fight. I mean, that would be like saying that you have a delicious meal right in front of you. You're about to eat it, but then somebody pulls the plate away like, oh, sorry. Like, come on.
This fight scene is too graphic to be played on TV, so use your imagination.
Yeah, but yeah.
By sound effects.
This time, I know that they got the director who did Trick or Treat, Michael Dougherty, I believe his name was, and he also did Krampus as well. So this is the biggest budget he has ever had, which definitely must be nice for him. But yeah, both of the movies, the 2014 one and the 2019 one, they are very different in tone. Like the 2014 movie was trying to be more serious, while this one, yeah, it was serious, but it wasn't taking it as seriously. But yeah, the fight scenes definitely were the highlight of the whole entire movie. But I do agree the movie does have its flaws, and it sounds like that Schnick here like has some issues with the 2019 film.
You mean Godzilla versus Kong?
No, Godzilla King of the Monsters.
Oh, King of the Monsters. Basically, like, I mean, I could look this up because I kind of have to recall. But basically, from what I remember, like the 2014 movie, I had problems with because most of the characters outside Bryan Cranston were not engaging. Well, King of the Monsters' problem is that nobody's engaging. And on top of that, it feels like really nothing happens in the movie until like the last maybe half hour.
Yeah,
Like,
I do agree with that. And there also was that comedy relief character, which I could have swore that comedy relief actor like has been in a lot of Adam Sandler movies. He was trying to be funny, but I'm gonna be honest with you, I thought he was annoying.
yeah.
You probably know what you probably know who I'm talking about, right?
As a matter of fact, I don't because I don't remember any of the characters from the movie.
Okay, well,
All I really remember is the three family members and the bald quote villain type person in the movie.
but yeah, about the cast, the one thing that is really interesting about the cast is that Kyle something in the cast. He was in this Godzilla versus Kong, and he also was in Peter Jackson's King Kong. So I believe he's the only actor who has been in two different incarnations of King Kong.
Mm.
So that's really interesting. What was his name again? Yeah, man, I heard that he almost was going to be Cable in Deadpool 2. Crap, what was his name? What was his
Hold
name?
on.
Okay, Kyle Chandler. Yep, that's him. But yeah, he was in Peter Jackson's King Kong, and he was in King of the Monsters, and he was in Godzilla versus Kong. So as far as I know, he's the only actor who has been in two different incarnations of King Kong. So
Mm-hmm.
So, what do you think about the subplot of them releasing the monsters on purpose?
yeah, a lot of people complained about that. A lot of people were saying that they thought that was really absurd.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, what did you two think of it?
Well, like I said, I blanked out most of the movie except for like the last half hour. I mean, there was some fine monster action in the last half hour, and it was also kind of cool to see more recognizable Godzilla monsters in it. But
Yeah,
that was it. Most of the movie was just like a blank for me.
yeah. Most of the movie, the only plot line going through there, besides the thing, was this guy trying to reunite with his ex-wife and daughter. That's all the movie was throughout the thing.
And they also had Dr. Shirazawa sacrifice himself like to revive Godzilla. Now they were trying to make that be a very emotional scene, but the problem is the character really didn't have all that much of character development. We never really got to know him all that much, so it really affects.
So, what was the three-headed monster called?
King Ghidorah.
Ghidorah. Yeah. Apparently, he can control the other monsters somehow.
But yeah, I will say this: King Ghidorah's roar in King of the Monsters is the best roar Ghidorah has ever had. Like Ghidorah's roar in King of the Monsters legitimately gave me chills down my spine. I mean, as much as I love the original King Ghidorah, the roar he had never was intimidating whatsoever. But his roar in King of the Monsters legitimately sends shivers down my spine. And I love that roar so much that I actually used it in my first Things That Piss Me Off movie, actually.
For what your dinosaur puppet?
No, I used it as the roar of the Killer CD. But yeah, you never would imagine that a CD like could roar. But yeah, if I had to pick either the 2014 movie or either the 2014 one or King of the Monsters, I would rather watch King of the Monsters any day because at least they don't do that bullshit cutaway. And it also was cool, like how they had that nod to Godzilla versus Destroyer at the very end. And I thought that when they had the oxygen destroyer, I could have swore that we were going to get Destroyer like as the main villain in Godzilla versus Kong, but boy, was I wrong.
That's gotta be some. When I first saw that weapon, oxygen destroyer, all oxygen 2 miles, something like that. I'm like, wow, that's a dangerous thing to have around.
Oh, definitely, yeah. Excuse me, sorry, long day. So, with all the bad things you all have said about King of the Monsters, is there any good things that you two can say about it?
Well, like I said, the last fight scene was kind of cool. It's kind of stinks that you have to sit through like 90 minutes of movie to get to it.
Yeah.
Like 90 minutes of nothing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I did like I guess trying to figure a way to talk to the monsters with that little computer thing was interesting.
Oh, excuse me. Oh.
Where they tame that moth for a caterpillar beginning the movie.
And the CGI for the monsters, I definitely would say is pretty good. But I mean, of course, it is if it has, if it has like that big of a budget. Yeah, the acting's fine. The editing's fine. What I really like about King of the Monsters is that it felt more like a Toho Godzilla movie, especially that they actually had the iconic Japanese theme song from the original movies. I'm like, finally, a mainstream Hollywood Godzilla movie that actually has the iconic music. Finally.
So basically, the whole movie is building up to a fight between Godzilla and King Ghidorah.
Yep.
To find out who the true king of the monsters really is.
Yeah, and okay, spoilers for King of the Monsters. I like how at the very end, like all the monsters like are bowing down to Godzilla. But yeah, I definitely like that shot, and but yeah, there are a lot of really good things to say about King of the Monsters, but of course there's also bad things as well. But yeah, I mean, you gotta admit, it definitely was a huge plus for them to actually have the iconic Japanese theme song in it, because it made it feel more like a true Toho Godzilla movie, which is what the 2014 movie lacked, the 1998 movie lacked, even Godzilla versus Kong lacked. But yeah, so I feel like there's not really much else to say about King of the Monsters.
All right, so let's start with, I guess we go to the Return of the Giant Monkey, or Ape.
Ape, absolutely. But yeah, this was a movie like that was planned for a long time. I mean, The original King Kong versus Godzilla came out in the 60s when my dad was a kid, so that shows just how long it took for them to make this movie. I do know that they did try doing a remake back in the 1990s. Toho was trying to have that, but they could not get the rights to King Kong at that time. So because of that, they thought, well, maybe it could be Godzilla versus Mecha Kong, but they couldn't even do that either. So that's why instead of that, we got Godzilla versus King Ghidorah in the early 1990s. So pretty much, they decided to exchange one king for another king, and yeah, the copyright and the ownership of who owns King Kong is extremely complicated. I mean, that's a whole video in of itself. King Kong technically is in the public domain, but only by a technicality. When the original 1933 movie was released, similar to with movies nowadays, there actually was a novel tie-in to that movie, and excuse me, Merian C. Cooper, one of the directors of the original King Kong, I guess that he forgot to renew the copyright of that book. So because of that, the novelization of the original King Kong movie fell into the public domain in the 1970s. So King Kong technically is in the public domain, but only by a technicality. King Kong in the book, he does not fall off the Empire State Building. Instead, he jumps off. So yeah, so pretty much with all the legal crap that got in the way, for King Kong, that is the reason why that it took them so long in order for them to make a new movie. But hey, it finally happened.
So is King Kong a gorilla, or do we know what this?
Well, I guess it depends on what incarnation. I know in the Peter Jackson version, I know that he's supposed to be a silverback gorilla, but in the other movies, I guess he's just more so of just a generic gorilla, not really a specific species, if that makes any sense.
Okay. So, how do we get from the King of Monsters to the giant monkey?
You mean plot-wise?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, it takes place decades after Kong Skull Island, and it takes place a few years after King of the Monsters, and we find out in the movie that Kong has been living on Skull Island, but there's a dome above it. And Godzilla's been roaming free, but then Godzilla starts to do a rampage against the city. People are wondering why. I do remember hearing a fan theory saying that Godzilla in the movie actually isn't Godzilla. It's actually Mecha Godzilla in disguise as Godzilla, which actually would have been a nod to the original Godzilla versus Mecha Godzilla. But I can maybe see why that they decided not to go that route, because then that would mean that Godzilla and King Kong don't actually fight during that first fight scene, and people would have been pissed about that. So
like a Mega Godzilla in a flesh suit,
pretty much, yeah. It's essentially kind of like Terminator, but meets Godzilla. So yeah, I will say this: I did enjoy Godzilla versus Kong. But again, the human characters didn't really care for. I did like the relationship between Kong and that little girl. I did like that, but other than that, the characters I didn't care for.
So your recommendation is to get rid of just all the humans in these movies, just purely the monsters.
Yeah, and I did hear some people say that, you know, for a future MonsterVerse movie, they should just not have any humans at all, but they should just have monsters in it. But then the problem with that is that they and then would not have like a big name star to help market it.
He gets stepped on the first scene.
Yeah, boo. But yeah, so basically it'd be kind of like a reference to Godzilla versus Bambi.
So you said Skull Island is in this universe.
It is, yes. But yeah, I will admit I thought that the fight scenes were cool. I do wish that Godzilla and Kong fought more than just twice throughout the whole movie, but hey, it is better than to just have them fight once at the very end. So at least that there is that. But yeah, a lot of people like were predicting this. Like that, oh, Godzilla and Kong are gonna team up and fight against a bigger threat. Similar to Batman v Superman. And what do you know, it ended up happening. And I totally called it that they were gonna do that. But yeah, I wasn't expecting it was gonna be Mecha Godzilla, but man, I was so pissed that before the movie came out, people spoiled it. That Mecha Godzilla was in the movie. I'm like, great. Now the surprise is ruined for me. And yeah, and that's exactly one of the reasons why that I made that rant video about people who give away spoilers to movies. But yeah, what did you two think of Godzilla versus Kong?
So, Godzilla versus Kong, I thought was okay. Like, I'll admit, like, the deaf girl that Kong kind of, like, communicates and bonds with, that was actually pretty sweet. But,
yeah.
Again, the human characters were just there, like, not really interesting to follow. And while the action scenes were a bit more spread out and were just there more often than like the first two Godzilla movies, like I still feel like it was a bit lacking in action in some parts. But I will say, like, the last fight scene was pretty amazing. I mean, also the fight they have out in the ocean is not bad. Like in the middle of the movie.
Yeah, having monsters fight out in the middle of the ocean, I cannot think of any other kaiju movie where that has ever happened.
So far we have Billy Cranston and this little deaf girl as your actually good human characters in these movies.
Bryan Cranston, but yeah. We're not thinking of the Power Rangers character.
Nope.
Oh, off topic, speaking of which, apparently the newest season of the show is actually bringing him back as a main character.
Oh, Bryan Cranston?
No, David Yost as Billy Cranston in Power Rangers Cosmic Fury, the newest season.
Well, he did come back in the Netflix reboot.
In the Netflix special, yeah, but they confirmed he's going to be on the show.
Okay, well, I certainly hope that they'll treat him better because
I think they are. Like, I think he has a lot more creative say and staying power after everything he went through back in the 90s.
Yeah, because David Yost is openly gay, and David Yost said that he would be bullied on the set of Power Rangers Zeo, and people would say, oh, a faggot cannot be a superhero, and yeah, David Yost said that the bullying got so out of hand that he just quit showing up on set. And quite frankly, I don't blame him for that. And so yeah, and so that's why. But yeah, that's the reason why that he left the show. And then that's why that they wrote him off of the show.
Mm-hmm.
And he was the last of the original cast too.
Yeah, one of the original cast before Jason, David Frank, came along. And then Jason finally left the show, and during Power Rangers Turbo.
Well, yeah, that's just it is an interesting connection that Bryan Cranston was in the 2017 movie, and then he was in Godzilla. But yeah, back to Godzilla versus Kong. I mean, I know that it's probably not the subject of it, but Kong Skull Island I thought was the best of the MonsterVerse movies. Number one, because it had pretty consistent action throughout the whole thing. Like, it's not just Kong beating up giant monsters. You also have the giant monsters regularly attacking, like, the human characters, like the soldiers. Like, you have, like, the giant spider scene, like, stuff like that. And also, another thing, Kong Skull Island actually did it. They made a bunch of interesting human characters. You had Tom Hiddleston, you had Brie Larson, you had Samuel L. Jackson, John C. Reilly, John Goodman. All of them actually had staying power. You were interested in what they were doing.
Which is why I would say Kong Skull Island definitely is one of like the better MonsterVerse films.
Yeah. For me, it's the top one. Like, because it actually, like, it's not a great movie, but, like, it does a lot more with the premise.
It does, yeah.
Yeah.
So, I forget this part, but Mechagodzilla, is that an ancient monster too, or is that a modern thing?
Yeah. So, Mechagodzilla has been around since like the 1970s. Mechagodzilla first appeared in Godzilla vs. Mechagodzilla from 1974. So yeah, Mechagodzilla. Yeah, next year like will mark the 50th anniversary of the character. So yeah, the character has been around for a long time.
But I meant in this movie, is he I mean, in this movie itself, is Mechagodzilla, is he like a current thing or a ancient thing?
I'm sorry. Could you repeat that again? Sorry.
Well, I meant in this current universe, not all together. Mechagodzilla, I can't remember. Was he like built currently in this movie universe, or was he been around for a while like everyone else?
But yeah, from what I recall from Godzilla vs. Kong, they used King Ghidorah's last head, like, to power Mechagodzilla, and so because of that, Mechagodzilla is more recent within the timeline of the movie.
Right, like a giant Godzilla Zord.
Essentially, yeah. But yeah, I do admit that I feel like it's cool, like how, Godzilla won the fight against King Kong, but yet King Kong got his redemption, like, by the fact that King Kong saved Godzilla from Mechagodzilla, and then King Kong was the one who defeated Mechagodzilla. So I really feel like that they even it out.
So Mechagodzilla could be Godzilla, Godzilla could be Kong, and Kong could be Mechagodzilla.
Yep. So it all makes it even.
Rock, paper, scissors. It.
Yeah.
So do you agree with that fight way? You think this has been a different way?
Do I agree with the outcome of
the fight? Yeah.
So I mean, Godzilla really does have the advantage with the atomic breath and indestructible skin, which is why that they tried giving Kong the advantage with that axe. But yeah, I do feel like that it was fair.
What you, Snick? What's your opinion of this fight series?
Of which series?
The Kong versus Kong and Godzilla battling it out.
You mean the whole MonsterVerse series?
Well, just their fight in general.
I mean, the fight itself was fine in Godzilla versus Kong. Yeah, it was easily one of the highlights of the whole thing. I just that I just wish that the preceding content before it had more intrigue.
But yeah, now I'm just surprised that they're fighting yet again in the new movie, the new Empire, because
I could have sworn they were teaming up, not fighting.
well, I do recall seeing in the trailer there's a brief moment where they fight. I'm like, okay, why are they fighting after how they made truce and after how Kong saved Godzilla's life? So why are they fighting during that scene? But maybe I have to see the movie itself. From my understanding, those two primarily are teaming up. So yeah.
Maybe they're fighting over a snack. Then like, oh yeah, time to get serious. Like how family fights until there's a common threat and they all get together.
That would be funny.
So let's go back to Skull Island. What was his backstory there? If it's the same universe, you said it's been decades since that movie took place, or
yeah, Kong Skull Island takes place in the 1970s, whereas the Godzilla movies take place in the present day. In fact, I think there's only one human character from Skull Island who returns in King of the Monsters. It's the character played by Corey Hawkins in Skull Island, and I think Joe Morton plays him in King of the Monsters, but I don't remember when he appeared.
I don't.
Yeah.
Either.
Yeah. At least I think. Let me make sure. MonsterVerse. Characters. Yep, I'm right. Corey Hawkins plays him in Skull Island. Joe Morton in King of the Monsters. I don't remember seeing Joe Morton in that movie.
I don't either.
So
but yeah, Corey Hawkins recently was in that new Dracula movie, The Last Voyage of the Demeter.
Yeah.
So why was Mechagodzilla even created? Was it
probably to defeat Godzilla?
So they're still trying to do that.
As far as I remember, I haven't seen the movie since I saw it at the theater, so maybe I need to rewatch it.
Yeah, like tired.
Me too. I had a long day, and yeah, I think we're all tired.
Tomorrow, I'm going to a final job interview for a job I'm hoping to get an offer on.
Awesome. Well, I wish you the best of luck.
I hope it works out.
Right, so overall, what's your opinion of this trilogy or quadrilogy for Skull Island?
It's, I would say, one good movie, not great, good, compiled with three mediocre at best ones.
Yeah. But yeah, 2014 Godzilla, I was so disappointed by. The most disappointed I've ever been for a movie. But hey, to be fair, I did set myself up for that with having my expectations be so high. Godzilla King of the Monsters, I enjoy it better than the 2014 movie. Still not perfect. Kong Skull Island, I definitely really did enjoy it. Albeit still not perfect, but it is really interesting that we finally got a King Kong movie where Kong doesn't die at the very end. Finally, right? Finally.
2 Kong movies where he doesn't die at the end.
Which other one?
Godzilla, Kong Skull Island, and Godzilla versus Kong.
Oh yeah, that is right. But I mean, at that time, Skull Island was the first King Kong movie, as far as I know. I mean, besides when they retconned it in King Kong Lives, but I mean, regardless.
just keep them away from New York, and it's problem solved.
Yeah, and especially keeping away from the Empire State Building. But hey, this Kong in the MonsterVerse definitely is way too big, like to be climbing on the top of the Empire State Building anyway.
Yeah.
Now, I saw it released in 2021. Was it delayed by the pandemic?
Yes, it was. But yeah, Godzilla vs. Kong was supposed to come out in 2020, but COVID hit, and so.
So
what a rough year that was.
So was it in the theaters, or was it released on?
I think Godzilla vs. Kong wound up going straight to HBO Max. Maybe it got released in theaters, but I know that it launched on HBO Max the same day. Like it was back in the yeah.
But yeah, I do remember this very well. I do remember that it came out both on HBO Max and in theaters at the same time. So pretty much giving people the option, hey, if you want to see it on streaming, you can, if you don't want to risk getting COVID. But it also was released to theaters as well. And yeah, Godzilla vs. Kong definitely was a pretty big hit at that time, especially considering that it was during the pandemic. I mean, it did not make $1 billion, but it still made a pretty good amount of money. It wasn't until No Way Home came out was when we finally got another $1 billion movie again.
And now we have $6 billion movies post-COVID. Like No Way Home was first. Then there was Top Gun Maverick. Avatar Way of Water, I know, was another one. The Mario movie. Jurassic World Dominion also made it. And the latest one is Barbie.
Yep.
Yeah, I mentioned this before. I mentioned this before, but yeah, the No Way Home one was my first post-COVID movie experience I went to.
For me, the first post-COVID movie experience would be James Gunn's Suicide Squad.
I wanted to see that in theaters, but I just didn't get around to it. But yeah,
yeah,
I am definitely very happy that they're continuing the MonsterVerse, because that then gives me more opportunities to see Godzilla movies on the big screen. It makes sense that it would be another Godzilla and Kong movie, because the 2019 movie underperformed at the box office, while Godzilla vs. Kong was a pretty big hit. So it makes sense that they would continue the MonsterVerse with both Godzilla and Kong. So,
but speaking of movie delays, is the delay of your movie helping or hurting you?
I would say that it's actually helping it. So yeah, I would say that my new movie being delayed actually is going to help it in the long run, because it will give me more time to film it, do the visual effects. So yeah, my new movie will be released next year, maybe at the earliest December, but yeah, more than likely 2024.
All right. Awesome. So are you officially a member of the ACU, or it's?
I believe you're talking about SAG, right?
Yeah.
So about that. So SAG currently is still during the whole strike thing. So basically, for now, I'm just working on figuring out how to work that into my budget with the union dues, and I also have to get an agent, which I actually currently am in the process of filling out an application, like to join an entertainment agency. I do have a photo shoot planned, for my headshot and all that. So I say that in a way, that the SAG strike actually is helping me, to plan it in advance, having to switch over my insurance and all that, and yeah. So I'm not a part of SAG yet, but with how things are going, I am pretty confident that I will. And as soon as I become a member of SAG, I do have a plan that I am going to be doing a celebration live
Okay.
stream on my channel.
Now, if you get channels, your other channel is closing down or something.
Well, it's not so much closing down. It's just I'm just going to avoid controversial topics now, since I have a shot with SAG. So on my other channel, I used to talk about creation versus evolution a lot, and religion and all that. So I decided for my second channel, I'm no longer going to be talking about those controversial topics. For my other channel, I'll just more so focus on science education stuff. But
Alright.
yeah, I do understand that will disappoint a lot of my subscribers on that channel. But hey, you know, Hollywood really is about who you know, and the last thing that I want to do is to potentially offend some of the connections that I might want. So
Well, I said, context, maybe once you're established, you can actually create a science versus evolution movie.
yeah, because the only ones that I know of, there was a movie called Creation, which was about Charles Darwin and about, like his famous book on the origin of species. There also was A Matter of Faith, which is more of a faith-based movie, and that's been notorious for being a really bad movie. And I'm not saying that just because of its subject matter, the like of where it stands on the whole debate, but I just heard it was really badly made. And actually, I do remember I saw it once. The acting was pretty bad. So yeah.
So what about you, Snick? I know you don't do much on your channel anymore, but any upcoming games that you want to play coming up on your channel?
Not really. I mean, Alma keeps bugging me to do the Thief games, but we'll see what happens.
Okay. But yeah, on my channel, I do have an autograph coming in the mail from Andy Manichek. She was in Halloween 2018, Halloween Kills, and Halloween Ends. She was the one who played the granddaughter of Jamie Lee Curtis. I have an autograph coming from her in the mail. I'm doing an unboxing of that, and I also have an autograph coming in from Tobin Bell. Tobin Bell was the one who played Jigsaw in all the Saw movies. We're gonna do an unboxing video of that, and Junebug Films. He was the one who suggested that I should do an entire collection video of all of my autographs. So when I get those autographs in the mail, I am planning on doing a collection video of all my autographs. And then of course there's the third Pissed Off movie coming out. And that's really all that I got planned.
Right. Now, for upcoming stream, you said you wanted to do a one about Friday the 13th in October.
Yep.
So we gotta plan that movie out soon in 2 months.
Well, yeah. I guess even with the new Saw movie, I guess we could do a Saw retrospective if you guys wanted to.
I didn't see the movies. I didn't watch the movies, but I'm up for it if Snick is.
For which again? Sorry.
Saw.
For the Saw series, I could talk about those. I've seen everything from the first one all the way to Jigsaw, the 8th one.
Yeah, the only Saw movie I haven't seen is the one with Chris Rock. I believe it's called
Spiral.
Spiral. That's the only one that I have not seen.
Yeah, I haven't seen Spiral either.
Actually, you want to do that in before or after the Friday the 13th?
The new Saw comes out late September, so I guess we could do it around then if we wanted to.
We'll get the schedule up right. We'll figure out the schedules and stuff, and trailers you want to see. But before we go, you guys want to say your catchphrases?
Mm-hmm.
Do you have any?
Well, the catchphrase I have for things that piss me off is, "Do you want to know what pisses me off?" And I guess for my channel, it's I'm Eric Virathal 92, and I'm out.
As always, Never stop learning. Enjoy the randomness. We'll see you next time.